Hello and welcome to a new video here on my channel. Today I'm presenting to you my part 7 of the story, The Curse of Bloodlust. I hope you really like it. If you like it, let's say you leave a like and an abo da. You know my English is not that good. Because of that, I'm letting an AI talk for me. I hope you like it still. My English is understandable, I think. Then let's start right with the story and don't beat around the bush anymore. And let's start.
Honestly, it's all just talk. I don't know how you managed to touch that silver, but it's just a trick. I have no idea why this school let someone like you in, but you bloodsuckers don't belong here, and I will complain to the director. Nikolai Grunhorn snaps, clearly annoyed at the vampire he believes has no place in his class. Rune is momentarily at a loss for how to respond to his racist tirade. She hadn't expected such hatred so openly expressed. Every word oozes venom, and she certainly doesn't intend to sit through 90 minutes of his warped worldview. She blinks, then decides this is a lecture she can safely skip. Then I'll be on my way. I don't need to endure this lesson with you. Goodbye, Nikolai Grunhorn. I hope you can live with the consequences of your own provocation, she says and strides out of the room, knowing full well she would not be the one to come off worse in their confrontation. You're not permitted to leave this classroom without my permission, he calls, arrogance dripping from his voice. Rune merely ignores him, but as she reaches the door, she pulls a hand from her pocket and flips him the middle finger before walking away. She sees no reason to tolerate a teacher who'd rather indulge his own ideals than actually teach. Just as she steps into the corridor, her instincts shout danger. In a blur she leaps aside from a crimson beam of magic, springs upward, claws at the ceiling, and then, like a cat, lands gracefully on all fours, now facing her would-be attacker. She realizes her body has moved on its own as she fixes her gaze on his wand and readies for battle. She hears him cry a spell and calculates its trajectory instantly, sidestepping the scarlet bolt. In one swift motion she lunges, knocks the wand from his hand, and shatters it against the wall. Nikolai's eyes widen in shock as he falls backward and she places her foot on his chest. Her eyes lose their glow and her silver hair settles back onto her shoulders. If you ever do that again, I don't care one bit that you're my teacher. I will destroy you. Consider this your final warning, Rune says, her voice laced with unmistakable bloodlust. As the disarmed and horrified instructor lies on the floor, 5 books lift from her desk and fly after her, their pages flapping like birds. I really should compose myself and inform Gaius and my butler Michael about what just happened, and then maybe I'll read my books, Rune thinks as she returns to her room to write the letters she planned. After sending the last of them off, she turns her attention to the secret world of spirits, eager to devour its contents. As she opens the book and settles onto her bed, she dives into tales teeming with information and accounts from those who have encountered spiritual beings. The book explains that spiritual creatures fall into 3 categories: negative, neutral, and positive, and emphasizes that the emotions, prayers, or wishes that give birth to these beings shape their behavior and any personality they might develop. It notes that spirits do not fear death, since they do not exist in the same way as living beings with souls, and that while they may rarely develop personalities, they lack the human distinction between life and death. A fascinating aspect is that opposing spirits can annihilate one another, hence the role of exorcists who eradicate negative entities like demons or devils. Positive spirits are rarer than negative ones, and their prevalence depends on world events. In times of war, negative spirits flourish, but balance always restores itself in cycles. Thus exorcists and mages must maintain equilibrium and minimize spiritual casualties. Approximately 1 in 100 homicides worldwide is attributable to spiritual beings, and many disappearances as well. Crucially, spirits cannot create new spirits, for they possess no soul and therefore cannot generate the belief energy that fuels spirit creation. Even if a spirit could develop feelings, any energy it contained would be immediately reabsorbed, not radiated outward. This means spirits cannot spawn more spirits. That is truly fascinating, Rune thinks. So spirits can be born of negative or positive emotions, beliefs, and wishes, but what about neutral spirits? She flips to the table of contents and finds only a brief mention. Neutral spirits are rare and unexplored, capable of traits from both other categories and theoretically more diverse. Frustrated by the scant information, Rune resolves to learn all she can about these elusive neutral beings. As Rune continues reading, time seems to fly by, her mind wholly absorbed in how spiritual creatures can be formed from different types of belief energy. Because belief energy isn't generated only by conscious faith, but also by wishes and emotions, it's important to understand how those wishes, feelings, and thoughts blend in various proportions within a spirit. If a spirit is born mostly from wishes, for example, it's far tougher to kill than one formed purely from emotion. She learns, as if it amplifies itself. Mix the three types of belief energy and you get truly complex beings. She discovers that wishes make a spirit more resilient and versatile, emotions grant raw power, and faith energy contributes both to resistance and other capacities. Yet the precise makeup of any spirit can only be discerned at its birth or at its death, and one of the greatest challenges is that you can never predict where or when a spirit will appear. This phenomenon is known as accumulation. Only when Rune finishes her first book does she look up to find the history lesson over, and nobody has come to complain. I thought someone would have called me to the director's office by now, she thinks, surprised. But she decides it's not worth worrying over. The odds that the mages in this palace don't know exactly where she is are vanishingly small. Shrugging, she checks her schedule. Next comes magical beast studies, apparently taught in a forest outside the palace. I wonder what my beast taming teacher will be like. It could be cool, unless they turn out to be some racist jerk who thinks vampires are just brutish, she muses. No big deal, though, I'll bolt if it gets awkward. I never expected there to be racists even in the mythological world. She considers writing a letter to her butler Michael about the ingredients she'll need to advance her plans, then decides she'll simply ask him when they visit her parents this weekend instead. With that settled, she leaves for the woods, easily spotting the handful of mythical creatures fluttering overhead. Hello, Nathan, good to see you again, she calls to the shy boy from her dorm, noting his scars and thin frame. Sorry if I'm blunt, but I've seen what poor upbringing can do. I had a rough childhood too. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Nathan steps back, startled yet less frightened than she expected. I hope I'm not overwhelming you. I think I might be on the spectrum, Asperger's. It's a psychological thing from the human world. If I'm too much, just tell me. His hesitation piques her curiosity until he admits, you're right, my childhood was awful, and it's gotten worse. I don't really know how to make friends. Rune's warmth softens her edge. Then we're friends. She scoops him up before the entire class and exclaims, look, I made a friend, my very first friend, yay. Laughing, she sets him down as his face pales and the other students gawk. Sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you. I have impulse issues. You're my first friend here, besides Gaius, who you aren't quite at friend level with, more like a candidate for something. She trails off, realizing she's said too much. To her relief, Nathan smiles. They chat about his adoptive parents and how he only recently learned he's a Godfield by birth. Rune confides, my family treated me like a servant, too, used me for chores, gave me no money, and favored my siblings. I ran away, met Gaius, beat up a lot of people, tried to kill myself twice, fought in a war thinking he was dead. That's my life in a nutshell. Oh, and do you like yoga? It really calms me down. She glances at him thoughtfully. Once she figures out which girl he likes, she'll have him burst into a split reflexively, triggering his innate creation and manipulation of gods and demons magic. She must be careful. The stunt can't be too obvious, but merely in the presence of the right trigger should suffice to awaken his power. I really wonder why his innate ability has such a bizarre trigger. Why is it that Nathan's innate magic, creation and manipulation of gods and demons, can only be activated by doing a split in front of a girl he likes. That's such a strange trigger. But at least it's not the weirdest one among this group of students. 5 of the innate magical abilities I can observe in the people around me seem like they'd be extremely difficult to use, especially if you want to stay alive afterward. And I doubt it's worth the effort for most of them. In my class, it seems like no one else has a trigger I could exploit to make them loyal to me. Rune thinks this to herself as she realizes that some of her classmates have already awakened their innate magic. However, the effects are so weak that they barely seem worth noticing. One of them has the innate magic to avoid slipping easily, which seems strange, and is only useful in very specific situations. Apparently, the ability only prevents slipping, not sliding, which Rune finds oddly amusing. Once again, she sees confirmation that innate magical powers, whether you call them magic or superpowers, are mostly absurd or useless. And so, of course, their triggers are just as absurd or useless. But in rare cases, some of these abilities are incredibly powerful, even if they come with conditions that are hard to fulfill in order to use them. It seems to me that these types of innate magic, superpowers, or whatever you want to call them, are obviously random, since even siblings can have completely different abilities that seem to have nothing in common. So I can assume that innate magic is either tied to personality or just completely random. Rune thinks this as they reach the forest. And as Rune steps into the forest and sees the cabin by the lake, she's taken aback. Not by how simple the scene is, but by how much more diverse and bizarre the magical creatures living in this forest are than she had ever imagined. There aren't just the mythical beings humans know from legends, there are many creatures she has never seen or even heard of before. Wow, I can only recognize one of these creatures. The beings in the lake look like mermaids, or something similar, and that over there is a unicorn, or at least, it looks like one. Rune lets her eyes wander over the assembled magical creatures. One of them looks a bit like a Japanese dragon, wingless, yet flying. But it's far from as fearsome as one might expect. It's only about 7 meters long, with fins instead of wings, and it appears to swim through the air, though that doesn't really make sense. The fish-like worm floats toward Rune, and she smiles slightly, until the creature suddenly opens its mouth and bites. The air ripples, and a tear in space opens as the magical creature vanishes into the portal. A small man with green eyes and a wild mane of golden hair rings a tiny bell and calls out, "Everyone, gather around. I'll be your teacher for magical creatures. My name is Gildo, and as some of you may have guessed, I'm a gnome. What you just saw, that dragon-like creature, is a very young world worm. Contrary to popular belief, world worms aren't actually that rare. They just don't live long enough to grow into their large, powerful forms. For those unfamiliar, world worms are a subspecies of dragons capable of burrowing through space and time. It's even said that they can travel to other realities. But whether or not they can truly travel through time remains a legend. No one knows for sure. One thing is clear, though, world worms appear in many parts of the world and are fairly harmless, as long as they aren't provoked. They can get quite bitey, especially the young ones. But the hardest part is keeping them in one place. As you saw, they can teleport through portals. The question is always, where did they go, and when will they come back? But if you treat them well, they usually return. Gildo says this in a voice smooth as silk. At 1.15 meters tall, the little gnome looks like an adult with the wrong body proportions. Yet he has a gentle nature and, as Rune can see, treats all the magical creatures with genuine care. He seems to have a natural gift for it, which is strange, considering his innate magic has nothing to do with animals. His connection to these beings isn't magical. It's simply part of his personality and his knowledge of magical creatures. Damn, he's really got a knack for dealing with animals, and it's not even magic. He just genuinely understands what animals like, even magical ones, apparently. Han thinks this, impressed, and notices that Nathan is also amazed by how the gnome cares for the various creatures. But as they continue their tour, everything suddenly falls completely silent. No sounds at all, not even their own heartbeats or breathing. Every sound just vanishes, which surprises Han, until she spots a moon calf. The creature resembles a colorful bird in white, silver, black, and gold, with a few purple elements. But its head is a perfectly round, black orb. It seems to be the reason for the deathly silence. The moon calf is a truly bizarre magical creature. When Gildo sees it, he gestures for the students to stay calm, and they quickly comply, even though they can't hear him. The moon calf, bored of not being able to feed on sound, bounces away as if gravity were much lighter for it. It stumbles once, tumbles, then bounces back up again. It moves as if the earth had the gravity of the moon, which is likely where its name comes from. Let me introduce you to the magical species known as moon calves. These are small, adorable creatures that feed on sound waves. So, if you suddenly can't hear anything, it's because these little ones have eaten your sound. Technically, you can still speak, but it's kind of pointless in the presence of a moon calf. Gildo explains. And so Rune continues following the teacher through what feels like a mix between a forest and a magical zoo. While walking, she turns to Gaius and asks a question that's been on her mind for a while. What would you do if you had a truly powerful innate magic, if no one could see you as useless anymore, and you had the power to make your dreams come true? Rune asks. When Nathan hears that question, he pauses in confusion for several seconds, then looks at Rune and realizes she's serious. But if he's honest with himself, he has no idea how he would react in such a situation, or what he would do with magic at a level that could grant his wishes. Honestly, I'm not sure how I'd handle having so much magic, since I don't have it, Nathan admits, a little bewildered by Rune's strange query. But if I did, I think I'd want two things: respect from others, and the power to protect the people I care about. That's really interesting. Thanks for answering my question, Rune says as they pass a pen of winged creatures that suspiciously resemble dragons. As he explains, however, these are low-ranking dragons, not the terrifying, legendary beasts often depicted as enormous, winged killers. You must understand that dragon is a broad term encompassing many mythological subspecies, their instructor explains. There are high-ranking, or pure-blood, dragons, truly fearsome beings with 4 legs, 2 wings, and a fire-breathing ability. They're the apex predators of their family tree. But not every dragon-like creature breathes fire, nor can every dragon fly. These specimens here are juveniles. If you like, you can try riding them. They have roughly the intelligence of a horse and can be tamed. These ones are already trained and are more like flying lizards that can spit small flames. Nowhere near as powerful as a true dragon, but still fun to ride. A wave of excitement sweeps through the new students at Intermagics. Rune feels her heart pound at the thought of actually riding something dragon-like into the skies. Even if it's technically just a winged lizard that spits a little fire, it's close enough. She only wonders how truly formidable real dragons must be, when these creatures seem as tiny as ants by comparison. Rune is curious, but not desperate to find out. Their professor hands them odd, softly glowing fruits that these sky lizards adore. Use these as treats, he instructs. Rune takes a handful and, with bold confidence, approaches one of the largest and strongest sky lizards, holding out her hand to feed it. She reassures herself, at least if my hand gets torn off, I can regenerate it, though it'll still hurt if this thing is carnivorous, even if the professor says it isn't. She breathes easier when she sees the creature has no teeth. But before she can fully relax, a violet tongue shoots from its mouth, greedily wraps around the fruit, and in the blink of an eye, the treats vanish into its toothless maw. What the hell? How did that tongue move faster than a high vampire's reaction? Rune thinks, stunned. Okay, it was just the tongue, but still, creepy. Did it just break the sound barrier with its tongue alone? That's about the speed that would make it invisible to me. Weird, but with so many strange creatures in this zoo forest, I can't rule it out. A roar echoes through the woods, strangely familiar to her. What the hell was that? A Tyrannosaurus Rex? How is that possible? Sounds just like in the movies. Could the mythological world really use actual dinosaurs to film dinosaur movies? Considering how crazy things are, like vampires making films about themselves to spread fake news, it wouldn't surprise me. Rune chuckles inwardly, recalling how vampires have sown legends about their weaknesses for centuries. She finds it amusing how much vampire lore has been manipulated. The idea that humans are their only food source is not only odd, but impossible to verify, like many mythic claims. She wonders who first decided only human blood would sustain vampires. In that moment she realizes she actually enjoys the taste of bear blood, grizzly blood in particular, though polar bear and even monkey blood aren't bad. She hadn't really thought about animal blood before, but it definitely tastes different than human. Another odd vampire legend, that vampires prefer the blood of virgins, she's tested personally and found no difference. Whether someone's a virgin has no impact on the blood itself, magical or otherwise. It's one of the strangest myths of all. When Rune sees Gildo the gnome scamper off, muttering about the dinosaurs causing trouble, she's sure he actually does have dinosaurs here, only it's far more exciting to saddle the sky lizard now. She mounts her befriended creature and prepares to fly into the air, saving thoughts of dinosaurs for another time. Wait until I'm back, and then you can saddle the sky lizards and take off, Gildo the gnome calls as he dashes away. Despite his small stature, Rune finds him surprisingly quickly. But waiting for him to return feels too dull, and the tingle of risk runs through her veins, so she proceeds to saddle her sky lizard and almost straps herself in. Rune has no doubt she could survive a fall from great height, but she'd rather not take the chance, so she plays it safe and reaches into a small pouch at her belt. As the opening stretches, everyone's eyes widen when Rune casually pulls out an entire parachute with one hand, unfolds it over her shoulders, and the bag shrinks back to its original size. What the hell is that? A dimensional artifact, a pouch that holds more than it should. Those things cost a fortune. How can someone just carry one around so nonchalantly? Someone whispers. Another voice in the crowd echoes that sentiment, baffled by how wasteful it would be to tote such a valuable item every day. Well, I happen to be rich. But that's neither here nor there, Rune replies, giving her sky lizard, Synthetail, a gentle tap and signaling that they're ready to fly. Rune herself is surprised by how effortlessly she can communicate with the creature. It isn't true magic but rather an emotional bond, as if the lizard beneath her senses her intentions. For a moment she wonders why they harmonize so perfectly, until she realizes her adventurous spirit and reckless daring reflect in the beast under her, gripping its black scales edged in crimson. As she ascends ever higher on the sky lizard's back, each wingbeat thunders like a storm behind them and the gusts whip at her face like invisible blades. Yet Rune only laughs as adrenaline surges through her veins. Flying feels entirely different from anything she imagines a vampire's flight to be. High-ranked vampires can fly, she knows, but not by transforming into bats as in silly human movies, simply by summoning wings of their own. Gazing over the valley below, she marvels at how vast this bubble world truly is. A separate dimension stretching hundreds of kilometers in every direction, all created by a single individual, the director of Intermagic's academy. In that instant Rune fully grasps what a monster of magical power and ancient knowledge the director must be. Wait a minute, why do I occasionally think of the director as he? I've got this weird sense that the director is a woman. It doesn't smell like male hormones. But how can I even smell someone's gender? Maybe I'm picking up on her menstrual blood, or perhaps female elves simply smell different than male elves, Rune ponders, unable to pinpoint the reason. Yet she is certain the director is indeed a woman, and why the director insists on presenting as male matters little to Rune. It's merely amusing and slightly confusing. That's all she cares about, for now. She circles higher, feeling wind and sun on her skin, glad that vampires aren't sun-sensitive. It's a relief. The idea of only venturing out at night would be unbearable. Thank goodness that, like so many vampire myths, that too is false. As she speeds through the air beyond any human's endurance, her thoughts drift to human weapons and technology. If there were a conflict between the mythological and the non-magical world, Rune bets heavily on victory for the mythological side, since magic doesn't preclude technology, except in odd corners like England, where tradition scorns gadgets, an exception rather than a rule. No natural law prevents a mage from dashing into battle with a wand in one hand and a submachine gun in the other. Yet she finds it equally impressive, terrifying, and comical to imagine a squad of mythological beings charging in with machine guns and wands, gunning down humans. Rune cannot fathom why humans wouldn't anticipate their own technology being turned against them. She's now convinced such a fight would be far from even. On the other hand, a world war is unlikely, for many mythological species' livelihoods depend on humanity. Even if climate change enrages nature, spirits like elves and fairies, who might slaughter hundreds of thousands, they would act as they always have. Different players on the same violent chessboard, now with countless new pieces. Yes, the world is a chessboard with many new games layered on top. It will be a very interesting age, she reflects, realizing her pursuit of power and magic must accelerate as the world changes around her. Suddenly a whistling sound reaches her ears, the air ripples, and a portal opens before them, revealing the canopy of the forest from which they started. Rune and her mount streak through, and the sky lizard slows gracefully, setting her down. I think I'm getting a bit too paranoid, already thinking about how to grow stronger. But the future is just too unpredictable, and even if it's only to live a safe life, I don't want to be just a side character in the chaos that's definitely coming. I want power to live comfortably. I guess that's ignorant and definitely narcissistic, but that's just who I am. Not good, not evil, and maybe a little lustful, but whatever. That's what Rune thinks to herself as she dismounts from the sky lizard, landing gracefully with both feet on the ground. With practiced ease, she shoves her parachute back into the ridiculously small bag. When she sees her magical beast's teacher, Goldie, drop his jaw in shock, Rune realizes something: magic bags must really hold far more than they appear to. And judging by his reaction, they must also be incredibly expensive. She wonders if this is like a magical version of a Lamborghini, just another luxury item only the ultra-rich can afford. Damn, she's not only attractive but also muscular and filthy rich. Honestly, I wouldn't mind if she pushed me up against a wall and kissed me, or maybe even choked me a little. That would probably feel electrifying, says a voice from the group. Rune, with her enhanced hearing, catches it easily despite the crowd of murmuring voices. Shut up, or someone's going to hear your weird, dirty fantasies. Maha, replies another female voice. And suddenly, Rune doesn't feel so blessed to have such good hearing, not when she has to overhear the fantasies of an obvious masochist. She wonders what the hell is wrong with this girl. Why speak so openly and honestly about such thoughts, even if she thinks she's whispering? Man, super hearing really isn't always the best ability to have. I wish I could just cut my ears off temporarily, or mute them. But unfortunately, I can't completely block this stuff out. Rune thinks, forced to endure the chatter between the masochist and the other girl named Lou. It quickly becomes clear to Rune that the older-sounding girl is trying to keep the younger one in check, which feels pretty bizarre to Rune. Well, what did I expect? Magic seems to attract all the weirdos to one place. I get the feeling that ever since I entered the mythological world, I've only been meeting eccentric, extraordinary people. Everyone with enough magic seems to have their quirks and peculiarities. Rune finds herself not only apologizing to the teacher for taking off on her own but also trying to ignore the never-ending gossip of the two women, one a full-blown masochist, the other somewhat more reasonable. Rune would have made the effort to remember their names and appearances, if they were in the same class consistently. But this school is far too chaotic for that. Every student basically has their own schedule, so classes change entirely from one period to the next. Fortunately, time passes quickly, and Rune notices that the magical beast's lesson is coming to an end. It had been more than just interesting, it was truly educational. Damn, she's hot. You think, bro, she'd give me a shot, says one boy to another as Rune walks through the castle corridors. Rune feels a bit uncertain. She's never had this much attention before, let alone romantic interest. So Rune resorts to her signature escape method, one she always uses when she feels completely overwhelmed. The classic Rune escape, A quick distraction followed by running away in the opposite direction as fast as possible. She finds herself in the surprisingly quiet and massive library. Towering shelves rise toward what seems like infinity, and to top it off, the shelves even move from time to time. Floating metallic bowls, burning with rainbow-colored flames, hover in the air and cling to the walls. Rune realizes she's never seen anything so beautiful in her life, or even anything remotely like it. As Rune scans book after book, asking about topics that interest her, like the basics of magical culture or the foundations of magic, she finds herself genuinely eager to keep learning. It's almost as if each answered question gives rise to two more. The mythological world isn't just ancient, it's impossibly diverse. And as Rune reads, she begins to suspect that more magical knowledge has been lost over the centuries than she could ever imagine. She can almost picture entire civilizations collapsing, cultures being rebuilt and reshaped again and again. Even the comet that wiped out the dinosaurs apparently couldn't erase all magical life from Earth. Rune tries to comprehend it all, but the timescales mentioned in the books, especially when it comes to magic, are unimaginably long. What Rune finds especially fascinating during her studies is the revelation that the Olympic gods from Roman mythology were actually real, spiritual beings born from the collective belief of the Roman people. In essence, they were absurdly overpowered spirits. Of course, they weren't actual gods, but according to the legends, Zeus had enough strength to pulverize entire mountains with lightning. Rune shudders at the thought of what could happen if everyone in the world truly believed in the same thing. The power such belief could create. Wait a second, if faith, wishes, prayers, and emotions can create spiritual beings, then it should be possible to manipulate that, like marketing. If I do this smartly, once I've copied Nissan's innate magic, I could start creating spiritual creatures. Then I'd give them the task of building their reputation, making people aware of their existence, fear them, love them, any emotion would help. That should work. But just to be safe, I'll have to wait until Nissan awakens his magic and creates his first spiritual creature. Still, I don't know if I can be that patient. Rune thinks, realizing how much time has passed. She stands up from the table, closes the books she was reading, and takes a step to the side. A moment later, the books float back on their own to their rightful places. When Rune asks an older student how to exit the bubble world through the main entrance, he kindly shows her the way and even walks her there. It truly feels like stepping through a soap bubble. But instead of emerging onto a white marble paved road as she expected, Rune finds herself on a completely ordinary country road stretching endlessly in both directions. Turning around, she sees only a regular forest behind her, though a faint trace of magic still lingers, barely noticeable even to her enhanced senses. I'd be so screwed if I hadn't brought my student ID that lets me return. That could have been a real problem. Rune thinks as she sees a limousine approaching from the distance. The moment she spots the crest, a crescent moon crossed by a sword, she immediately knows it's her butler, Michael, coming to pick her up. But as the limousine draws closer and the doors slide open, Rune doesn't just sense Michael's aura, she also feels the presence of Gaius, and two others she had sincerely hoped not to see again for a long time. Hello, sisters. Honestly, I was hoping I wouldn't have to see you until we got home. And what are you doing here, my dear? Rune says, suddenly sounding much friendlier to Gaius than to her own sisters. That's really not how an older sister should behave. You can't just treat us coldly like this. We haven't done anything to you, big sister, say the identical twins in unison. Now that Rune sees them clearly, she realizes that her two twin sisters are not merely similar but absolutely identical. A chill runs down her spine as she senses they share exactly the same innate magic, a phenomenon she's never encountered in all her years. No other magical creature or human has ever matched someone so perfectly. I wonder what the hell is going on here, and why my twin sisters aren't just eerily synchronized, but truly identical, even on a magical level. I've never seen anything like it, Rune thinks to herself. As if feeling her intense gaze, the twins suddenly turn to Gaius and implore him to explain the situation. Our sister refuses to trust us. Could you please tell her we only wanted to see her again? Says the twin on the left, her blue eyes fixed not on Gaius but on Rune. You seem a bit confused, Rune. I believe that's because you can now sense the magic of both twins. Your suspicion is correct. These two are actually one soul. No, nobody cloned them. They were born this way. This is an extremely rare occurrence where a single soul manifests in two bodies. You might think of it like quantum physics, with the soul existing in two places at once. Hence, they are identical in every way, magical and non-magical, Gaius explains casually. Hey, you shouldn't be lecturing us on how magic works. You should be sorting this out between us. You're friends with her, protests the left twin. Gaius merely shrugs. I'm not here to babysit you. I'm here to look after Rune, to make sure you don't start brawling because you're acting like idiots. I stand on no one's side, neither yours nor hers, and I won't tolerate you behaving like jerks. And don't think that because you're two bodies and both girls, I won't hit back. Rune taught me that strength and justice aren't about gender but about conduct, he replies, sliding a bit closer to Rune as the limousine continues down the road. Just as Rune wonders how much longer the journey will take, Michael announces that they have arrived. Stepping out, she beholds her garden and the grand villa before her, so familiar yet somehow almost forgotten, like a dream that never changed. As Rune gazes upon the majestic architecture of her home, she now, no longer human, can unmistakably sense magic lingering in every stone of the building. Yet she must admit to herself that the color scheme hardly matches what she'd expect from a family named Blackstone. It's a blend of white gold and lapis lazuli, with the roof entirely blue, a choice that seems incongruous with her lineage. In this moment, Rune isn't sure whether she perceives magic because she's a vampire or because she's discovered her own power. Reflecting on recent events, she wonders what exactly triggered her magic, since it seems implausible that every form of magic in the world requires a trigger, except her own. But perhaps I'm wrong to assume every innate magic needs a trigger. After all, I haven't encountered many magical beings. Some magic might be active from birth, though I know nothing of it. If I think on it, maybe I simply can't see a trigger once magic has awakened. Rune muses. That could mean innate magic does sometimes function from birth. So the question becomes whether mine was always active or only awakened at a certain point. Both are possible, but I suspect a trigger, perhaps my very first suicide attempt, which would align with the overpowering potential of my ability. Yet it could be even more complex than that, with additional emotional conditions, much like Nathan's creation and manipulation of gods and demons' magic, which requires him not just to do a split but to do it before a girl he likes. That could prove awkward if he were attracted to men instead. In the same way, my magic might have multiple trigger layers. Rune walks through her family's familiar garden, the scents of roses, tulips, hyacinths, and orange blossoms tugging at her attention even as she ponders what it means to be back in the place where her depression and grief began. Stepping through the grand front doors into the enormous entrance hall of the villa, she immediately feels that crushing sense of worthlessness, as though everything and everyone here looks down on her. Yet even as she wants to shrink away, she owes Dracula Silverstar, the one who gave her life, her true second chance, not to lower her head. A Silverstar does not bow. I owe it to Dracula Silverstar to face my trauma with pride and not cower. I am no longer someone who can be shoved aside and ignored. I am Rune Silverstar Blackstone, and I am a high vampire. A high vampire does not bow his head before mortals. The interior of the villa feels at once familiar and subtly different, which throws Rune off for a few seconds, until she realizes the answer before she can even ask. It must be the house's magic and the fact that, as a child, she lacked magical perception, which made certain enchantments invisible to her. Most magical phenomena are visible to humans, but not all. What strikes her most, though, are her mother, Maria, and her father, Sebas, standing in the center of the room waiting for her, just as arrogant, proud, flawlessly poised as ever. Her stomach twists. Anger rises inside her even as fear and old trauma mingle in her chest, making her want, at once, to punch them both and to cower like the obedient child they once beat. It's wonderful to see you again, Rune Blackstone. I've truly missed you. My daughter, Maria Blackstone says. It's good to see you, my dear daughter. We've missed you. Would you like something to eat? We've prepared food for you, Sebas adds with a friendly smile that doesn't suit him. Rune would have believed them if she didn't know better. She refuses to be deceived and meets their eyes, rage undimmed. You really think I'm going to fall for this bullshit? Rune Silverstar Blackstone snaps, stopping dead as the doors slam behind her. The Rune goes deathly silent, then her parents' pathetic attempts to rewrite years of abuse shred the quiet. Rune is here for no such words. You can talk all you want, but I don't believe a single lie. You mistreated me for years. I'm here only to have a simple conversation, and I expect no hypocrisy. I no longer consider myself part of the Blackstone family. You will sign the papers that sever our ties. And if you think you can detain me with military or economic pressure, know this. The Sylvester family has orders to free me by any means necessary. My butler is authorized to use force and the full power of the Sylvesters against you. I don't care how overkill that sounds. I trust neither of you an inch. Rune's voice is ice, capable of freezing blood. The tension is so thick it could be cut with a knife, and the shock in her parents' eyes reassures her. They never expected this. But you're part of our family. Why would we let you go? We never meant to treat you so poorly. You can see for yourself. You're free to leave anytime. Why resort to threats? Maria stammers, her perfect composure shattered. Have you forgotten your own violence? You beat me whenever I failed your impossible tasks. My twins, these two bodies that somehow share one soul, scalded me with boiling water. You saw me as worthless because I lacked something you never even taught me. How was I supposed to recognize magic if you never showed me? And now that I've inherited Dracula Silverstar's legacy, you fear my power and want to reclaim my influence, and that of the Silver Stars, through me. Go fuck yourselves. That will never happen. Rune spits, disgust and fury in her tone. To underscore her resolve, she reaches into her bag, draws a piece of armor, snaps on a blood-red helm, then pulls out a sword. Rune makes no illusion that she could flee if they tried to hold her. Though bringing weapons may seem over the top, she'd rather be ready than trapped. What seizes everyone's attention, however, isn't the helm or sword but the pistol she produces. Her family, steeped in tradition and magic, once scorned technology. Rune remembers how, as a child, she wasn't even allowed a phone. Now her weapon is the ultimate symbol of her freedom and distrust. She can wield both spells and a handgun. Magic doesn't preclude modern arms, after all. Thanks so much for watching The Curse of Bloodlust 7. I really appreciate you sticking with me through this journey. Over on the right side of your screen, you'll see a link to the playlist. Feel free to binge the whole series. And on the left side, right in the middle, there's a link to my latest upload. Don't miss that one. Thanks again for your time and attention. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, stay curious.